everybody. Welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. We've been talking to Denise Wiesner about Conceiving with Love, her newest book. And we've been talking about the five element lovers wheel and talking about sex, intimacy, and your experience, Denise's experience as being a sex coach as well as an acupuncturist. But we're now talking mostly about sex. Okay, so we're talking about the different elements, and let's talk about water next. And if you identified with some of the stuff that we heard in the second segment as having, oh gosh, that water thing really resonated with me.
You know, water element, and when I deal with fertility patients, is the element that I work on with all fertility patients, because as we age, we say our kidney energy, it's not actually your kidneys, but your kidney energy starts to decline. So it's something like, we talked about aging, the Chinese are very big, the Taoists are very big on anti-aging,
Mm,
preserving, sort of like really keeping youth alive, right? Some of the
mm,
practices are really about that. So, but when it comes time to fertility, we want to engage, we want to have a good sex drive. We want to have good sex, good reproductive function, and we want to, and where this gets kind of stymied is if we're always stressed. And I mean, if we're living in fear, we're buying into the sympathetic nervous system, the fight, flight, freeze response, right? Like
right.
nobody's going to want to like make a baby when we're fearful of like, are we okay? Are we okay? Do we have food on the table? I mean, the whole pandemic, in the beginning of the pandemic, there was a big joke about all these babies being made in the beginning of the pandemic, but people were actually very, I don't know, a lot of people were having sex in the beginning. I think it did change, because I've
Right.
noticed a lot of babies are now, a lot of women are pregnant. But at the beginning, there's so much fear that people weren't like, the first thing wasn't like, oh, let's have a great sexy evening together. It was more like, oh my gosh, are we going to be okay? So
Should we
dealing,
wear a mask when we have sex? Like, what should be next?
yeah, should we wear masks? Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was so much uncertainty. So dealing with the water element is twofold. I think it's one, dealing with fear, and really dealing with your own fear around time running out and having to do things now, and just fear in general, because it doesn't, I don't know, when I'm scared and fearful, I'm not like in my body and ready to be
Right.
like, connecting with my heart.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of times the antidote I'm doing with a lot of or telling a lot of my patients is to kind of break it down to be here now. Loving awareness now. It's one of my
Hmm.
mentors, Ram Dass, who passed away. Just, be here now, loving awareness. It's so about being in the moment and trying to
Hmm.
connect with now, as opposed to the future fear. So that's the water element. But if you need to like, don't have a good sex drive, or you're having night sweats, or you're having hot flashes, or you're feeling cold and low energy and low sexuality, there are a lot of tonics in Chinese medicine that are excellent sex tonics that one can take to like build up not only their sexuality, but all their sex drive, but also their egg quality and sperm. So it's Chinese has this
This
kidney
is
tonic.
horny goat thing.
Yeah, the horny goat weed. But there's so
Okay.
many more. There's so many more than just horny goat weed to really nourish a woman's sexuality and a man's sexuality. And I encourage, people to take things, and even acupuncture and Qigong and all sorts of things to to get their sexuality back, to get their
Hmm.
sex drive
Hmm.
enlivened.
Okay, so this is like now, if we weren't talking about fertility and we're talking about libido issues that happen later in life, would this horny goat weed work for men and women, or is it
Yeah,
mostly
I mean, yes, I mean it's for men and women, and but I never like would say take horny goat weed on its own, because Chinese herbs have to be individually curated. In other words, I mean put in individually curated into a formula where you take a bunch of herbs, right? It's not just horny goat weed. You might have horny goat weed with ginseng. I just gave a lecture on a sex drive, so I just did all sorts of research into all the herbs that have like increased testosterone, but they're usually in formulas together.
I see. Okay, it's not like you can just go to Amazon. I heard Denise speaking horny goat weed.
But yeah, no, I think there's better to have tonics, but even in addition, it really is best to work with a practitioner who knows, who can diagnose you, because if you take herbs that are very, very warm in nature and heat you up too much and you're already running hot and dry, that's not going to be a good thing for you. So you want to really work with someone who knows what they're doing.
Right. Okay. Got it. And then how about the element of nettle?
Nettle uh, is the breath, is about letting go, right? So of course, if you're having issues around shame and sexuality, as many do, I think that it's important to address what we need to let go of from the past. So
Mm.
I had a couple that came to see me, and the man wasn't able to ejaculate in his partner. And so they wanted to do IVF, but the reason he couldn't, he didn't even address with anyone why he couldn't ejaculate in his partner. Like he hadn't even talked about it because there was so much shame
Mm.
around his sexuality. And he was with a partner who, a original wife, who had divorced him because they couldn't make a baby because he couldn't ejaculate. Now he's
Oh.
with a second woman who just decided to go through IVF, but no one worked with him around this issue. And he
Mm.
never, he mentioned it to their reproductive endocrinologist, who just said, yeah, IVF. So when he worked with me, it was about like explaining why someone might not be able to ejaculate. Just giving him some
Mm.
like, well, sometimes, you have a masturbatory style where you masturbate and it's different than the friction a vagina gives.
Mm.
Or you've learned so long to withdraw and not ejaculate in a woman. It's not, you've ejaculated in a condom. It's not, it's
Mm.
not, it's not natural. You don't know how to let go in that way. And you have to
Mm.
unlearn your masturbatory style, or it's practice. And so I gave them some techniques. I mean, but just the fact of, in this metal element, he was holding this shame around that, and we
Mm.
could just elaborate for so many things that we hold shame around sexuality. That
Mm.
breathing and doing acupuncture and letting go of like that it could be normal. Other people have this issue. Sort of
Mm.
normalized it for him, and I could just see he relaxed and he became okay.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
that's kind of the metal element. It's about
And
breathing.
you
So
said that in the previous segment that there are certain breathing exercises. Can you
yeah,
share us a
yeah,
breathing
I was
exercise?
just about to go there. Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes what's really kind of cool for couples is to take in each other's breath. So
Oh,
yeah, like how intimate is that? Someone
yeah.
exhales and you inhale their breath, and then you give it back to them, and then they take in your breath,
Ah, wow.
right? Or you breathed, or you synchronize your breath together. So if you're like, let's say you're hugging your partner, and then you start matching, you both try to match each other's inhale and exhale.
Mm.
It's super powerful. And then I have this other exercise that was given to me by Brenda Strong, and it's in my book, and it's called passing the ball.
Hmm.
And it's when you're back to back with your partner, and you inhale and fill up your belly like a ball. It's like you
Hmm.
inhale, fill up the belly, and then when you exhale, you pull your belly in and you send the energy back, because you're back to back with your partner. You send the
Ah.
energy back to them, and when they feel that, they inhale and fill their belly
Oh,
like
cool.
a ball, and then they exhale, and it's called passing the ball. And so you're exchanging energy in the kidney energy also,
Mm.
even though it's a metal practice,
Hmm.
in that lower burner. It's so intimate, and that's a great breathing exercise to bring partners more connection.
Those are fun. I mean, they're fun to just play with. Why not? What else
What
are we doing here in COVID time?
exactly?
Okay.
Passing the ball.
Exactly. Throw the ball around. All right. So how about fire?
All right, so in Chinese medicine, the heart energies are fire element, which is
Hmm.
about love and joy and connection. But the heart opens to the tongue.
Mm.
So remember, we said the liver opens to the eyes, but the heart opens to the tongue. So I invite and everyone here on this call to go and do intimate kisses. Like I have patients that, they like used to kiss in the beginning, but now they sort of got out of that practice of just kissing with your tongue,
Mm.
just the intimacy, because the tongue connects to our sex organs. There's a
Mm.
connection. That's the
Mm.
heart connecting to the loins. So I feel like that is a fabulous practice, is really intimate kissing
Mm.
for heart.
And it's also good to just normalize all these things too. If you know what I mean, like, oh yeah, we don't do that as much. I mean, it's kind of it's normal.
It's so normal. That's why I'm saying I'm inviting everyone, because we get out of practice and we get in our own like rhythms, all of us. Like if we've been married for a long time, or we just get in the rhythm like, okay, honey, you want to have sex? Okay, yeah, like a little on the boobs, a little
Yeah.
here. People just get into their own rhythm. In this position, that position, we're done.
Right, exactly. It's like a formulaic thing.
Yeah, it's a formula.
Okay.
Yeah, because we've been doing it for such a long time, we just sort of know what these are. So sometimes it's great to kind of stop and add another element into
Mm, I
lovemaking, and
like
it
it.
doesn't have to be like major. It's just like kissing, like
Right.
yes, everyone gets out of practice. Yeah,
Right.
you know?
I
Yeah.
love it. Anything else on the fire?
The fire is also our connection to something greater. It's our
Mm,
spiritual connection that we have in our own lives. And, it's that when we're trying to make a baby, I think, in lovemaking, it's this idea of control too, that we're sort of like, we can make this happen. If it doesn't happen, there's something wrong with us, or like,
mm,
we have to be in control of this. And
mm,
one of the greatest things I believe is this greater thing that's happening that we don't have control over. And you can call it whatever you wish, right? And some people call it God or the Tao or spirit or the universe, or it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, it's just this mystery and beauty of life. It's nature. It's
mhm,
watching the flower open, right? The rose open. It's the beauty of nature and letting things unfold. It's the trusting. When it's
mm,
time for things to sprout, they do. So
mm,
I always, it's like a connection up to the higher. So
mhm,
that's to remember that we're not in
mm.
control of everything.
Yes. Love it. So these are just so, what I love about everything that you shared is they're just practical, tangible things that you can do. Like pass the ball, kiss more, practice touching. It's these things that I don't know how, but over time we just forget. Like they seem pretty obvious. At some level, I'm like, oh yeah, of course. But but you forget to do all of these things. I
Yeah,
just love the
me too.
practical nature of these. And then also that, you can get out of balance and that you can actually have a healing modality that can, if you have a fear, like if people don't want to do the sex coaching and they just needle me up. I don't want to talk about it. I'm guarded for a reason. I had some sexual abuse as a young person. I don't want any of this stuff. Are you finding that you could just do the needles and it just works without getting to like the root
Oh,
cause psychological issue?
well, when it comes time to trauma, I don't like to bring up the trauma, because trauma, when you start talking about your trauma, you have more trauma. You're not supposed to even talk about trauma. So sometimes, we talk about that they have trauma, and then we use the energy to help open it up. And sometimes, I mean, I've had it myself where I had some deep epiphanies just having needles, where the energy starts to move and like something changes in my life, right? It's like that with everything. So yeah, it doesn't have to always be a talking thing. Sometimes it's the needling. Sometimes people, have an emotional, and they don't even know why, but it connects deep to something, a release. So everything is part of everything. It's everyone's unique in how they formulate. Some people I work with, we just talk about very practical things, and we don't even get into sex.
Right.
It's not everybody's issue. It's just that I treat what I see. I treat the whole person. Whatever shows up is what I engage with.
Love it. Okay, we've been talking to Denise Wiesner about her book, Conceiving with Love. Will you hold up your beautiful book as we close?
It's got flowers. See,
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, and for the work that you're doing. I know that I've had so many friends, and I was lucky, but it's so hard, when you're trying to bring a life into this world and in a place where there's a lot of stress. So these are just wonderful techniques that are very practical. Thank you so much.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.